Okay, thanks everybody for tuning in, and thanks so much to Kristina for being here and being willing to share all of this with us on such short notice. So Kristina Rugh owns HLC Bookkeeping, and she is going to present today on some of the state and federal relief options for small businesses that are available right now. And I, for one, am very excited to hear this because I am incredibly confused. So.
That's funny. There is a lot of information out there. So some good, some not good. So I'm going to try to give you all the basics of what you need to know, the information you need to have in front of you. We'll cover the different types of loans that are out there and when and who you should be contacting. So it's all the basics for today. And I apologize because I did do this presentation very quickly. I'm hoping I did this spell check, so I'm hoping there's nothing spelled wrong out there. But okay, so if you want to go ahead to the next slide. It's a pleasure to be here today. I'll just briefly go over HLC Bookkeeping, and then I want to talk about the Small Business Administration. You'll see it's called EIDL loan, EIDL. That stands for Economic Injury Disaster Loan, but that abbreviation is everywhere, so I wanted to get you familiar with it. And then the third thing we'll talk about is the Paycheck Protection Program, which is a different COVID funding opportunity that's out there right now. So if you'll go to the next slide, please. Okay, that's me with my old picture. Tracy just did new pictures for us. You'll be seeing those premiered on our website. HLC Bookkeeping, we've been in business for 15 years. We just had our 15th anniversary on April 1st. And so I'll be presenting today everything we know about COVID-19 and how to proceed forward. So if you'll go to the next slide. Okay, so the SBA EIDL loan, it is administered through the United States Small Business Administration. That's what it stands for, Economic Injury Disaster Loan. The purpose of this loan is so businesses can keep working in spite of the disaster. And what you want to keep in mind is this is for businesses who've had a direct result or an indirect result due to the COVID-19 epidemic or pandemic, I guess it is. You can use it to pay your fixed debts, cover payroll, if you're not going to use the payroll protection program, because you can't use EIDL funds for payroll if you're doing the Paycheck Protection Program. So you've got to make sure from an accounting standpoint you're using it correctly. You can use it for
really quick. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Kristina, I just wanted to say, if anybody has any questions, please put them in the chat and we'll be able to go through those too.
Absolutely.
So
yep, absolutely. And like, I'm going to kind of like download everything and then whatever questions we can address. Basically, these aren't intended to replace lost sales or for expansion purposes. It's not free money. I keep hearing this phrase out there in the world about free money for businesses. It's not free. It's for specific purposes for this pandemic. The state governor has to declare the area as covered, which Westmoreland and Allegheny counties have been declared that through the Pennsylvania Declaration. So it is an opportunity for the SBA EIDL loan. So if you'll go to the next slide. There are credit requirements that you will have to, it's a loan, so you will have to go through credit history checks. You will have to demonstrate an ability to repay the loan. And if you need a loan over $25,000, collateral will be asked for. Up until $25,000, they're not looking at collateral. Pros for this loan is it's long-term. You can take it up to 30 years. There'll be a low interest rate on. Originally, it was 3.75, and then somebody else reported up to 4. So we're just saying no more than 4 because that was the ceiling we had heard. Emergency relief advances up to $10,000. up to 10,000. There is no cost to apply, and there's no obligation. If you apply and then decide you don't need it, you don't have to take the loan. So that we're telling our clients to go ahead and apply, even if right in this point in time, your sales have stayed the same, because we don't know how long this is going to stretch on to. So go ahead and apply and see if you can get approved for it. Next slide, please. The link there takes you straight to the SBA EIDL loan application. There are eligibility statements that you have to attest to. You're not a criminal. You've never defaulted on an SBA loan in the past. You're a U.S. citizen. So there are certain things you have to say, I am, or my business is. So make sure you have certain information in front of you. You would need your entity legal name, as well as if you have an EIN or social security number, what type of structure, sole proprietor, S Corp, C Corp, nonprofit. You have to know what you're legally recognized as, the address of the business, phone number, email of the business. Then you have to have your gross revenues, and this is a weird time period. It's from February 1st of 19 through to the declared date of disaster, which is January 1st. So that you can't run a 2019 financial and be like, here you go. So it's going to be 11 months from 19 and 1 from 20. So number one, your bookkeeping has to be up to date. And number two, it has to be accurate. Gross revenues, all sales, everything. You don't take anything off of it. It's everything. Cost of goods sold, that's for people who have an inventory business where they're buying product, and you have to list them what your cost of goods sold were for that time period. If you have any rental properties, you can list lost revenue due on rental properties as well. And then the personal information needed, make sure you name, if you have an official title of your business, you have to list it. Ownership percentage, so if you have multiple owners, you're going to have to list all the owners on this application, plus their birth dates, their place of birth, and whether or not they are U.S. citizens. And then if somebody helps you with the loan application, you have to list who's helping you, and then if they charged a fee, what they charged. So like all this you should have in front of you before you go forward with the application. That application literally takes 15-20 minutes if you have all that in front of you. So just, if you get it organized first, you're good to move forward. So that was a simple program. Now the Paycheck Protection Program, slightly different in terms of how it's being rolled out, where the EIDL loan goes straight through the Small Business Administration. The Paycheck Protection Program has to be administered through an SBA recognized lender, which is usually a bank. So you want to make sure your bank is SBA recognized, and if it's not, do you have an account at a lender who is SBA recognized, because they have to be SBA recognized. The Paycheck Protection Go Live for small businesses was last Friday. That's why I look horrible and I've been going without sleep. We have to get all our client stuff ready. And then the Paycheck for Independent, the program for independent contractors and the self-employed is this Friday. Now, what I want to caution you is we have had feedback where some banks have stopped taking applications at this time because they have been so inundated. Their back office is overwhelmed and they can't process. So we're telling our people, do not panic. Still get your information ready so that when they're up and running, you can go ahead and do it. And different banks are handling it different ways. Some of them, you're just going to do the application and then they'll be like, okay, we'll contact you and let you know what you need. Other banks are expecting you to have all the documentation at the time of upload of the application or at the time you go to the bank. So you have to find out by logging into your bank's website which one, how they're doing it, so you can be properly prepared. And this one, it is implemented by the Small Business Administration, but the Department of the Treasury is the one backing it and checking everything. So I can't stress enough the importance that your numbers match your accounting. Cannot stress that enough. Okay, next one. This one has the opportunity to have the funds fully forgiven, and it'll pay your payroll costs for an 8-week period. Now, I put can be fully forgiven. I've seen will. You can't say will be forgiven, because if your accounting isn't appropriate, they will not fully forgive the whole program. You have to make sure you're using it for payroll purposes and for the interest on mortgage, rent, and utilities only. And only 25% of the funds could go to anything other than payroll. So you have to track it appropriately in your bookkeeping software, so that when it comes time to say this is how you spent your money, they're not negating that grant process. Forgiveness is based on the employer maintaining or quickly rehiring employees. Remember, the purpose of this is to keep your people working. So they don't want you laying people off, and they don't want you cutting hours. The purpose is to keep people working. So you want to make sure you're not going to get this money. Okay, I'll lay everybody off. You can't do that, because it has to go to their payroll. It will be reduced. They'll reduce the forgiveness if you do go ahead and lay people off. So it will become a loan, not a grant. Any funds not used according to guidelines, you will have to pay back as the loan. And the thing to remember with the loan, it's within a 2-year time period, it has to be paid back. So you want to make sure, if your payroll's huge, that it's something you can pay back within 2 years if they negate part of that grant funding. Okay, next slide. I put a link there where there's a fill-in form for the application. I suggest you do the fill-in form. It's just easier than for your banks to deal with. Some banks, though, have their fill-in-the-blank form as part of their process. So I tell people, I go ahead, print off the form, do my chicken scratch on it, go check your bank, see if you're going to have to type it in there, or if you can use the fillable form or whatever. But I always do a chicken scratch one first, just to make sure I have all my information covered. Very similar information is going to be asked for the Paycheck Protection Program as for the EIDL loan. All that information about your business, all the information about your company. Anybody who has a 20% or more ownership in the company, you have to have all their information. You have to know who the major decision maker is for your company if you have multiple ownerships. And again, different banks are all doing it different. I've worked with 8 different banks so far, and they don't all ask for the exact same thing. So be aware, the basics of what everybody is asking for are your 940 or 941 forms for your employees. Your 2019 1099 miscellaneous forms, and then you have to provide documentation which serves as proof of your monthly payroll costs. And it's broken down by vacation time, sick time, if you had somebody on family medical leave, and retirement. And the application expires on September 30th. So you want to make sure you have all that documentation readily available. If you do payroll with QuickBooks, they have special reports you can run. ADP now has Paycheck Protection Program reports. Paychecks now has Paycheck Protection Program reports. So you'll just check the report area of your payroll service, and they have the reports mostly done for you. But again, some banks are saying just send me a big figure, meaning between this time, 12-month time period, send me this, where other banks are saying, no, I need a monthly payroll summary by employee. So make sure you know what is required, because you don't want this thrown out on some technicality and have to reapply. Okay, next. Oh, we're at this part. Okay. So this part is how can HLC and you work together? You can do all these applications yourself. You do not need HLC to do them for you, but we're here to back you up if needed. So I just want to make sure you're aware of that, because a lot of people are like, oh, I have to hire somebody. You don't. The purpose of these programs were for business to be able to do them. So if you have the documentation and information, you can do it. You don't have to hire anybody. Now, if you choose to hire anybody, I'm going to suggest you hire me, but you don't have to. I just want to make sure everybody's aware of that. And we've helped people from the application process through. We can help you track funds. Once you're approved for the funding, we can set your QuickBooks up to do it correctly. We are requiring a deposit for the work to be done. And if people choose to sign a contract with us, then they get a contract rate and not the hourly rate listed there. If you choose just to use us as what we consider ad hoc hourly support, that's our rate. And then WBN people always get the 10% discount. If you go to the next slide. These are just some other things that we do for people that now is a great time to do, because this is what we call a transition time within your business. So historical data, we have to now put it through the COVID filter. So we can help you work on cash flow. How do we look at old and past trends, and how is that going to translate? What industries are being way affected versus others? So like, this is a good time to have a discussion about any of these things with an HLC advisor. And if you go to the next slide. There we have 2 WBN members within our HLC employee base. So there's myself, and then we have Linda Thomas, who's in the Washington chapter. Linda and I are both running point on this project. So if you have questions, she and I are both great resources for you. We are asking people to call the office number to get on a list, because we do take clients in the order that they come in. So we are asking everybody to call that office number, which is on every slide. If you would like to set up, we do what's called a free house call first, and then we can talk to you about your COVID needs or any other business needs. And that's it. I hope that was a lot of information, I know, to digest. But those 2 programs, again, it's something you can do. You can get them both done within a day if you really have the documentation and information in front of you. So if you have any questions, I'll be glad to tell you what I know. I will tell you it's a very fluid situation. We're getting updates from the SBA, from the CPA organizations, from the different accountants we work with. It's very fluid. So I will do the best I can, and I'll let you know if it's something I have to research for you.
So Katrina's asking, she's saying, everything I have seen is the payroll protection application is until June 30th, not September 30th. Do you know anything about that?
Well, the EIDL loan is through September 30th. Did I put it on the wrong slide? Sorry. Yeah, the EIDL loan is through September 30th, 2020. So maybe I put that on the
and
wrong
then the
slide.
Pink wasn't that through the end of the year, I thought. Right?
Well, you can apply,
and then,
yeah, but you have to have it through June 30th is the 8-week period they're looking at.
Right. She says, also, can the 8 weeks of payroll upon returning the workforce after getting the loan extend to 6/30?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So the other thing I was going to say also, so when you say up to 10, because this is the thing that was very fuzzy at first with the EIDL, the $10,000 advance funds grant up to $10,000, they've clarified that at the beginning of the week, saying it's $1,000 per employee. So that's important to know.
Right. And like, I have
including
not,
yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, I have not seen that, because originally, remember, this loan doesn't have to be just for payroll. So I'm not sure why that's.
They're just talking about the advance. Yeah, they're just talking about the advance part of it. But up to $10,000 is only, because the whole idea was that you could take that up to, up to $10,000 would be the advance, that would be the grant. But then even if you didn't take the loan beyond that it was, well, then they just finally clarified at the beginning of the week, the SBA sent that out, that it was $1,000 per employee, but that's not what's in the bill. But the SBA has discretion to,
well, and
adapt.
I'm going to caution, because we've been told things were set in stone and then they changed it a couple of days later. So just take everything you hear with a grain of salt.
Yes.
And just try to stay as educated as possible. You can sign up for the SBA newsletter on their website. So I suggest you do that. And then that'll help you whenever they send up their COVID updates. You can be on the front lines. But like I said, grain of salt, people, because what was said one day has been sometimes changed within the next couple of days.
Right. And then also in terms of the PPP, the Paychecks Protection Program, when you're figure out if that's a good option for you or not.
Correct.
Obviously you yourself are included in payroll.
Yes.
But that also includes like health insurance payments that you make.
Correct.
That includes retirement payments that you make. So when you're trying to calculate as a sole proprietor contractor, does this even make sense for me? Right? Because maybe you don't make a lot of money. So is it going to be better for you to do that? Or is it going to be better for you to try to do unemployment whenever that opens?
Yeah, and let's talk a little bit about that, because right now unemployment has that very generous federal overlay of $600 per week on it.
Right.
So there are some employees that are now making more in unemployment than they would on a regular paycheck, because they get that $600 over and above, that the state is administering it through the unemployment program, but it's federal funded.
Right. But that application is not yet available in Pennsylvania. They're for sole proprietors and independent contractors. So your employees, if you pay them through payroll, not like independent contractors, they can, and that's the other thing, you don't count independent contractors. Like if you have people that you're working with, you don't count them as your payroll.
Yeah,
the other thing.
And let's talk a little bit about that, because you have to watch here, because 1099-M forms are what you're supposed to issue by January 31st of the next year for anybody you paid over $600 for services. So if you paid somebody that amount and you didn't issue them a 1099, now they're going to the SBA and saying, look, I make this money from all these different people. You now have pathways being created. So I'm telling people, make sure you filed correctly your 1099 information, because now you have all these back roads going back in, because this one's saying they're an independent contractor. Well, they're going to check those 1099-Ms. So like, just be aware that there's a lot now of information being gathered by the government about business and independent contractors.
Right. And then Devin's asking about, how does the PPP loan work with unemployment? Can unemployment cover the period before the PPP loan is received?
The PPP
mine can't be at the same time.
Correct.
Like the PPP because
you're
covered by payroll
is to pay wages through the business. Okay. So if you laid somebody off partially, they're getting unemployment benefits, which is different than you using the PPP funds to pay their payroll. So the business can use PPP funds to pay their payroll, and it's not linked to the unemployment they're collecting.
Right. Like I think if people are thinking about it as for your own business, again, if you are the owner of the business and count it as payroll, and PPP is going out so far in the distance, but at the same time, you also need to, for unemployment, how long was that going to come in? And you have to make sure that the unemployment isn't that we for the PPP, because they can't, like, you can't get unemployment for the same weeks that you are taking for with PPP.
Yeah, right. I was specifically asking about, like, for those of us who are self-employed.
Right.
How do we try to figure out
Yeah, you basically
we
are,
file for unemployment for like the time from the shutdown to the time we get the PPP loan and then have the PPP loan pick up? Can we do that?
yeah, I don't know that.
Okay.
I don't know that because my understanding was if you sign up for unemployment, the federal overlay lasts 4 months. So the assumption is you're unemployed. So now if you're saying I'm calling myself back, basically, to work in my business, and I'm going to use PPP funds to pay me, you have to watch the double dipping because they're going to watch that. Though it's in two different lanes, there's going to be an audit of how all the money is used. And since the unemployment for sole proprietors and independent contractors isn't all out yet, I'm not sure how to answer your question.
Okay, because what I heard was that the unemployment for self-employed and independent contractors, you can't apply for it yet, but when you do apply for it, you can kind of like back apply essentially. So you're applying to the time that you were shut down, and then you will eventually get that money.
Correct.
And then the PPP would, I think, pick up and to pay yourself moving forward from the time that you got it. But no, you're saying no, maybe not.
I don't know that for a fact yet.
Okay. There just seems like a lot of unknowns.
Because they haven't set the program yet.
Yeah.
So like we haven't got the documentation on it. So common sense says yes, but it's the government. So I don't know what to tell you.
Okay. Now we have Zoli5. I don't know who that is. But there, she's saying for self-employed, I already applied for unemployment just because there was not an application a couple weeks ago. Should I reapply if the new application comes out? I think from what I've read, I've thought yes, because I think that would automatically get denied because it's specifically on the website saying do not apply for self-employed.
Yeah.
So you may need to reapply. So
unless you've been paid through a payroll system where you have paid into the Pennsylvania Unemployment Compensation Fund, you don't get unemployment. So if you're a sole prop, been taking draws from the company, you can't apply for unemployment the regular way.
Right. So you have to wait for this. We don't know. But they have that form available. It's just a separate thing. And then Katrina saying, everything I read on PPP says you can recall the employees who are laid off, and it does not say you are giving back pay. Can you see the chat? She says, everything I read on PPP says you can recall the employees who are laid off, which is true. And it does not say you are giving back pay, just 8 weeks of pay.
Correct.
So, yeah.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not seeing a chat, but
okay. I don't know if you can see that.
Mm-mm.
I think if you go to the bottom, you can see there's a chat thing.
Oh, there it is.
Up.
Yeah. Thank you.
And then Katrina is saying, is your understanding that owners who pay themselves via W-2 can apply for unemployment now?
Yes.
Okay. And then we have another question. I am an S Corp and employee. I applied for unemployment, but have not yet received anything. What should I do? We've got so many applications.
Yeah, I was going to say the backlog is unbelievable. Wait.
I said that much.
Yeah, like that's really it. Patience is a virtue. It's awful. There's a horrible backlog. There's just, you have to wait for them to catch up.
Thank you, Christine. This is Annette, and that was my question.
Oh, hey.
I'm using my husband's.
Yeah, it's if I can't tell the name, so sorry about that. So there's another benefit that I guess is part of this that they're not really talking about, and it's not really something you can get right now, but something to look forward to, I guess. But that there's a tax credit that you can get on your 2020 credits. Are you saying that's not going to happen?
Well,
sort of?
From a federal standpoint, there has been talk, yes, that the original intent was that, yes, this Paycheck Protection Program, anything that became part of that grant, from a federal standpoint, would not be considered unearned income. So it wouldn't be taxable, is what they were saying. However, the state of Pennsylvania has not said, well, we're not going to consider it taxable income. So, and that statement was backed off a little bit at the last webinar I went to with some of the CPA firms, where now they're not sure. They think that was the intent, but they have to reevaluate the language. So in your mind, I would still consider it right now when you're taking a loan. So you would classify it, you're taking the loan and it's coming into your bank. As soon as you get the information from your audit that your paycheck protection, this portion of it now becomes a grant or whatever, it's going to go in the income section of your profit and loss. It's just whether or not your accountant has been told this is considered taxable or not. So I would still process it appropriately as an income, and then we'll see how it all flies out. But yes, originally the intent was it wasn't going to be taxable income, but I think now they're looking at the volume of money coming in. I don't know if they're going to be able to do that.
Well, but this was like specifically a self-employment tax credit that was based on a per diem. So no one's really talking about that. I just put a link into the chat so you can look at that later and see if that's something, because I'm sure we're going to have more conversations about this and we can see what that's going to be. Does anyone have, Katrina is asking, we have 40 employees and we laid off most employees and hope they will get unemployment until we can get PPP to recall them and start paying them, which will take them off of unemployment. Is that what others are doing that you have seen?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So that's a good plan, Katrina.
Yep.
Does anybody else have any other questions? One new message. That is what we have done. You have until June 30th to recall. That was Kelly Maison said that.
Correct.
All right. So we are, oh, my internet connection is unstable. Sorry. Do you hear me? Am I breaking up?
A little bit.
No, I'm good. Okay. So we're going to have more conversations about all of this, I imagine. So if you have any other questions or if you have any ideas of what would be important to cover, like what are you struggling with right now? What do you need? We can pull some things together about that.
Yep. Yeah, and we're probably going to do some updates. We haven't decided if we're going to do just a short little video thing on our website or if we're going to put on Facebook, but as things change, I did want to let you know we have received information from some of the bankers we're working with that some people are already getting funds for the Paycheck Protection Program. So like they are rolling it out very quickly. I've never seen anything like it. So just keep that in mind. There will be frustration in terms of you're only as quick as your bank, basically, to get the information in. And like I said, there are some banks right now who are just inundated and have stopped taking applications till they catch up. So just be patient. And I know that's hard to say whenever it's your business and you're working it forward, but just kind of stay calm, call a friend. You know what I mean? Try to think of other ways. We are working with some of our businesses to kind of brainstorm different revenue streams, that sort of thing. This is a great opportunity to start thinking of those things as well.
And I would, you know, if you're supposed to get a refund for last year, like you, even though you don't have to file till July, like you should file now because that's
Correct.
You can get some money in. So Kelly Maison was asking what banks, when you were talking about which banks were getting paid or paying out already.
Yep.
And then Beth Castellan was asking, has anyone seen $600 extra from unemployment yet?
Have not heard of anybody getting the 600 extra. Huntington Bank already started funding. First National Bank, they said it was like going to happen, I guess, today or tomorrow. And who was the S&T Bank?
Okay. And you can also look at credit unions. Like I know Chrome, I think it's Chrome. They're a credit union in Washington County. They're an approved lender, and even if you don't have an account with them, they are looking as their second tier. They're looking at people who have other credit unions, because you know a lot of the banks aren't going to take applications if you don't have an account with them. So you just check some of the smaller banks too.
I'm glad you brought that up, because straight up banks are not. You have to have an existing relationship with them before they're even taking your application, because they have to service their clients first. And you can understand that. You want to make sure that your people are taken care of. So if you happen to be banking with somebody who isn't an SBA lender, then you
Dollar
would.
Bank.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear. So you would want to check.
I was just saying Dollar Bank, I think, was also a lender, but
yes, correct, they are.
okay. Okay, I think that's it for questions. Yeah.
Okay.
Looks like it. I think we got all of them, unless anyone has anything else. Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much for being available on such short notice, Kristina.
Yeah.
I know you're so busy right now.
Like I said, don't hold my PowerPoint if there's typos against me.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. We will see you soon. We're going to continue to try to bring helpful, valuable content together for you guys and get it all together. All right. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye. Thank you.